there's any dead time, I'll trim it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Osquery Office Hours. It's June. So, announcements. The thing I'll mention for announcements this week is that I updated the website to reflect that Arch 64 support, or ARM 64 support, is now stable. I think we've informally considered it stable for a while, and I finally updated the website. So, yay. Anyone have other announcements?
Thank you also for finding how to add the supported platform for a table that we did a while ago. I had no idea that that was like a 4-step indirect generated web page.
Coincidentally, I had been monkeying those scripts to, to note that ARM 64 was stable, so it was all right in my head. Okay, next section is questions, issues, PRs, if anyone wants to discuss them. The intent here is to sort of welcome people who aren't regulars here, if anyone has any questions. Hey, Blade.
Yeah, there's obviously my PR linked in that others have also contributed to. I put the link in Osquery core, I think. I think it's close. Just wanted to point out if anybody's would like to take a look at it. But Xprotect entries and meta broke, and Big Sur, not Big Sur as I originally thought, but some point release of Big Sur, it seems. And this fixes that. So it's pretty small, but it is there.
Yeah, thanks for the fix. I'll take a look right now.
Cool. Thank you.
Any other questions, PRs, things from the broader community? You mostly all look like regulars, so yeah.
One thing on that comes to mind, I thought when I was looking for previous work or issues reporting on that one, there was something about Xprotect reports. I can't remember if there's a PR or just an issue that Xprotect reports the files had moved or something. I don't know if it makes sense to pull that in to the one I did, or if there's already PR just to work on that one, or if we should fix all 3 tables. They're all kind of in the same file. That's why I brought it up. But yeah, I'll find the link to the issue and paste it in somewhere where you can all see it.
I think you are empowered to fix all of them in your PR.
Fantastic.
We'll review it.
Look, I think there was a PR that someone had already done or was working on. So
I see an issue, but
an issue. Okay.
You may need to just dig through and see what you find. But I think you can fix whatever looks broken to you, and
okay,
if the code's reasonable, we'll review it.
Sounds good.
So, okay, I guess agenda. So I stuck an agenda item on about whether or not we wanted a 4.9.0 release. So I saw a little talking about that on Slack. I thought maybe this meeting would be a better place. Teddy, were you advocating for a 4.9.0 release?
Yeah, I think the situation is we have 2 things we want to get done. One is have an Osquery release where endpoint security sort of works out of the box. That's one thing that we want. And the second thing that we want is to fix some legacy artifacts around like the name of the launch daemon on macOS, the place where we install Osquery on macOS. I think most of this is just centered around like we called things Facebook in the past, and we want to move that over to just Osquery. It's a breaking change. So we have some pretty clear guidance on how to like move from an old release of Osquery to a new release. So we wanted to make that very clear and say, let's stop with the 4.0 and move to a 5.0. So we've coalesced these like breaking changes into like, what does 5.0 mean? Generally, we want that. So we want the ES to work out of the box, and we want these sort of legacy things gone. So I think we're more or less ready to start making those changes and get a 5.0 release out. So I was advocating for, let's have one last 4.0 release, call it 4.9. I think we're ready for that. And then let's move fast and get that 5 ready to go.
So for the 5.0, I think on macOS, all the pieces are there to put a release up. And I saw your PR on code sign for the Linux code signing as well. So all the pieces are there.
The Linux code signing isn't a breaking change. That's just
Okay.
a process change. We're not changing the signing key. I did start trying to get us a Windows signing key, and I am unsurprisingly stuck in the midst of organizational verification. So
a couple of things. For the Windows, I started working on this last night, and I'll try to get it done this week. But I should have I'm going to put my key up there, so that way we at least have something that's signed and valid, and get that into the Osquery code sign repo. So there shouldn't be too much pressure, Seth. You should have quite a bit of time, I hope, to get that in. But I do have, I think it's one small CMake change to the main Osquery repo that I'd like to get in before 5.0 for the chocolatey packages, because they've changed some of the XML spec for it. So I'd like it to be like have fewer warnings when we submit the Osquery chocolatey package for verification. But it's a really small change. I haven't gotten it shipped yet because my builds take so long. And so like I've sort of been dragging my feet, but I'll get it done this week. So hopefully there won't be any blockers on that.
Well, I mean, it sounds like Teddy's arguing that we'd cut another 4.0 release, which kind of, whether that goes through the new packaging code or not is...
And I think that's disjointed. This is just like, I'd like to get this small CMake change landed before we do another tag. So like if I could get it before 4.9.0, the PR is done. I just need to throw it up and test that it's working correctly. I just want this so that way when we come to do 5, we've kicked the tires on the chocolatey side of things, and there's no like, I won't have any concerns that submitting there is going to be an issue again. So I'm prioritizing that in my life. Like I'll make sure that I get these things shipped this week, or at least very soon, as soon as I can.
Teddy, is there anything you want to be pushing out in 4.9.0, or are you just feeling like it's been a while, so we should just have a release?
I think order of priority is one more release so that we can start working on 5.0. The next one is, I like what Nick said about kicking the tires on the automated signing and publishing. I think that's more or less ready to go. So if we could use 4.9.0 as a way to test that, awesome.
Yeah, it'd be. Sorry.
Then I think for me, this is personal, but I think for others this might be very high pry. Is we've updated a couple of third-party dependencies that had vulnerabilities. So getting that release out sooner rather than later sounds good.
So I'm not sure that we could use the new signing code for a 4.0 release, because we'll end up with the wrong, unless you wanted to unpackage and re-sign, we'd end up with Osquery signatures, which is a breaking change.
Not opposed to unpacking and re-signing. My current workflow actually expects to do that. So another option might be, can I go to that signing pipeline and use the existing keys for the 4.9.0 release, and then we pull them out and put in the new keys?
I mean, there's secrets in GitHub, so in theory that would work, yes.
You would probably also need to update the GitHub Actions YAML file, the release generator workflow, with like
Yep.
because the current one, which Alessandro and I kind of expects the naming to be a certain way, and
Yeah, that's fine.
I would actually rather not change what's in GitHub. I just feel like there's a lot of moving parts, so like twiddling them around feels like needless risk. I'd instead say if we wanted to cut a 490, we should go with the unfortunate resigning approach.
Easy. Yeah.
So I think with this one, can we still keep those artifacts produced from the pipeline there, so that we won't distribute them, but at least, people here can test it. I can test it, whether that code signing flow worked and everything is what we expect or not.
Yeah, I like that. So, Seth, I'll push back on your recommendation here. I think I'll advocate for what Charvel's asking for. So we go into the current Osquery code sign, and we take what is there working as the sign the packages step. We put an if false, and then we put another step in there which says like sign with legacy keys step, and essentially does almost exactly the same, just with the existing keys that are stored as secrets. And then we let the rest of the workflow continue, which publishes the artifacts to S3 and publishes them to GitHub. If we're confident we get to see that working end to end, then we remove that legacy step and we remove the if false, and so we then move forward with the old keys or the new keys. And
Okay.
of course, we remove the old keys from the secrets too.
But that doesn't sound like it would really monkey with anything fragile. So you're right. That sounds pretty safe. I just mostly don't want to change. There's a lot of like very poorly connected environmental variables and things. So I get a little worried when we start monkeying them all around.
Yeah. I mean, that workflow too isn't completely idempotent, but like if we run it and it doesn't work, we can always go back into the GitHub UI and like for the artifacts for the release, delete them and then run the workflow again.
Yeah. Will the artifacts just overwrite in S3?
In S3 they will. Yeah.
So I mean that seems fine.
Yeah.
I think if people want to do it, we can do it. That's, I'm always in the do less work category, but there have been a couple of things out. There's some pretty real bug fixes there. So
cool. So we'll wait for Nick's changes to land. No rush, sometime by the end of the week, maybe. And then
I want to get Blades in too.
Yeah, Blades looks good. I'm gonna approve it right now. I just made some nitpick changes, and we'll get that landed. Thanks for that work, Blade.
Yeah, you bet. Thank
I can
you.
throw up the. Oh, sorry. I'll throw up the PR at least tonight, and maybe just mark it as WIP, just so that way we can tag it as blocking the tag or the release if we want. Like I said, I just have to test it and make sure that it's functioning correctly.
Yeah, throw it in the 490 milestone. Whenever you do. Charvel, I saw you put up a thing to do the bundle path stuff. I think that should not merge until we're done with the 4.0 series. I don't know if where that is.
Yeah, there's a PR open in the packaging repo. I have a PR to make in the code sign repo as well. But yeah, if you're cutting a 4.9, yeah, I can either like wait on merge or provide an option in the CMake, and depending on what the variable does, like do the old way or do the new way.
I kind of don't want to add a lot of legacy if statements, right? Like they're useful this month, but then as soon as we move to 5, they'll just be dead code. So my sense is I'd rather just not merge a thing and then, move over and then merge it. But
I guess it depends. Maybe we should put this up for comments for the larger community, because there could be some use cases where people like downstream, Osquery deployments that are dependent on the way that we build and bundle right now.
Well, but so speaking, like Collide extracts OS because Collide does lots of weird things, and I imagine Fleet DM is in the same boat. Collide just extracts the underlying Osquery binaries. Like, I don't use our packages because they're not compatible with what we're doing. And I feel like if anyone has these really strong baked processes about like paths and things, I don't want to support that in the build. I would rather just be like, make a symlink or, extract the binary or something. Like, all of these things are reasonable. I don't think we're shipping anything that requires you to have an app bundle, so you can always just rip it apart at the end site.
And that's the thing too, like the app bundle is literally just like a folder structure with a package info manifest and an info plist and the profile.
Yeah, so what about this? So we just kind of make an issue that says like, hey, this is happening if it doesn't exist already, and then in general on Slack we'll just be like, yo, this is happening, like speak now or forever hold your peace. And then a week goes by, if there aren't any like really strong, well thought out, discussed use cases for keeping it, then we'll go with the new approach without having that CMake option of still supporting the legacy one.
We can do that. I'd probably want to create an issue and then send it to the Mac admins Slack community. They're Chevelle. I can probably create an issue, or Chevelle can, or something. Sounds like the sense of the room is that we should cut a 4.9, and we'll do it kind of when Blade's PR and Nick's PRs merge. And it'll have some improvements. Improvements are always good.
Can we also like shorten the cadence to a 5.0? Because it would be nice to have that endpoint security working and out. At least
Yes.
Test packages, if not, yeah, because we usually wait a month till a release, and I think
we currently target about 2 months, and it's a fairly soft target, and it stems partly from wanting to do less manual work. So,
okay.
If we're like, hey, the automation is good, let's just do it.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't see any reason we can't release as soon as we feel like we want to release.
Yeah, let's start. Let's say the existing release date for 4.9.0, which I think was July 1st. Let's hold our feet to the fire of getting the 5.0 release out before then.
Cool.
We can do it, team. Come on, we're like almost there.
Windows code signing certs only come at the speed Windows code signing certs come.
Yo, call up Bill. Be like, what's going on?
So let's see. Probably nothing else to talk about on 4.9.0. Sounds like we'll do it. So
slightly tangential. Would it be possible for me to have access to that test bucket on S3? It'll create a faster feedback loop for me to test whatever is uploaded as an artifact from the code sign.
I haven't looked at this. I see an agenda item on here to talk about it. I'm broadly in favor.
Or I'll just kind of keep pinging you on Slack.
Teddy, I assume you made this S3 bucket. Is it publicly readable? Do we want it to be publicly readable, or is it just for sort of internal shenanigans?
So the test bucket is what the continuous delivery pipeline should publish to until we like confirm that everything's working, and then we'll switch it over to the production bucket. So the way that I've been testing that is I'll spin up a couple of VMs, go through the documentation on the website for adding the repos, and also get all the URLs for the downloads from the website, replace the ARN for the bucket, and just make sure everything still works. I'll run the release workflow a couple times to make sure that the sort of publishing to S3 is idempotent too. Which I would like to bring up with you, Seth. The way that works right now is it downloads the entire, like a folder on the bucket, let's say like /RPM, and then it reconstructs the repo metadata and publishes back up. So it's downloading about 1.5 gigs and uploading the differential each time. Might get some S3 costs that we haven't seen in the past, but that aside, yeah, so the test bucket should only be there for a small period of time while we're working on the workflow. I don't mind adding an identity or an IAM role that you have, Charville, to that. We can just coordinate offline.
Okay.
The whole thing's read. The whole thing's public read. It's supposed to mimic the configuration of Osquery packages bucket. So there's no sensitive information in there. Just like, yeah, there's an ACL to write to it.
If it's public read, then Charbel might just need the URLs to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Which are probably actually in all the YAML files.
I mean, if you, it's like what, s3.amazonaws.com/osquery-packages-test.
Okay.
And there, and then the existing folder structure that you would see on pkg.osquery.io.
Okay.
Nice. Cool. I'm glad the automation is moving along. I feel like needing to download everything feels silly, but we can change that later.
Yeah, I mean, I think GitHub Cache is free, so we could just put a cache step in there and, we'll be good to go.
I feel like there is. At some point, we can revisit our RPM and Deb repository generation tooling, but
absolutely
incremental. Charvel, I assume you added this 5.0 app bundle packaging question?
Yeah, so I was just trying to basically add the 4.9 versus 5.0 thing. Like there's a PR up in the packaging repo to create a .app bundle, and I've tested it locally. I haven't tested it end-to-end on GitHub Actions, but it works locally.
It sounds like our general plan for 5.0 is to get another 4.0 release out, a 4.9 release out, and then just start willy-nilly merging things on packaging and, looking at the buckets and being like, does this work? Sound right to people? So I don't know, anything you want to say about the app bundle packaging other than that we should warn people that it is potentially a breaking change? I guess also we're changing the install location from user local to opt to Osquery is another one.
Mike, does that cover everything on that? Did I miss anything?
I think that's good. I mean, I was wondering if, if we have more delays on getting endpoint security working in a release, what we might do, or whether we could sign a version that has the fixes, sign it from us, or provide a beta version, or something. But other than that, yeah, I think we discussed what we're going to discuss here.
I mean, this stuff's in the packaging repository, right? So in theory, if you clicked some code sign and build buttons, you might get a beta package that had it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't propose putting that on the site or anything, but getting it to our clients' hands to actually test.
Well, let's try and get the 4.9 cut, and then we can merge the app the app bundle changes in.
Yeah.
And then basically any build you generate off of a master branch would give you a testable thingy.
Mhm.
Does that get you like most of what you want?
Yeah. Nick's camera angle makes it look like he's working really fast. It's like,
I am. I type so fast, like it's just crazy, man. Crazy.
So I have to drop off, but just to roll that up, if we can get 4.9.0 tagged, then the next merge could be the app bundling, which would produce an artifact in GitHub that we could out of band run through the new signing workflow and sort of within hours send to Slack core saying, here is a beta version of the new bundling that has ES working out of the box. So all of these things happen really fast once we get 4.0 tagged.
Yeah, I don't even think you have to do it manually because the code signing's also like I think that part is working. So
Yeah, code sign's working.
got it. Okay.
Yeah. I would say the manual thing would probably be the workflow works on a tag right now as an input.
yeah,
So you'd have to do something a little bit differently to kick it off for a commit.
can you just pass it a SHA?
I'll have to update the download artifact script, but if I do that, the current thing will break. The current workflow will break. So
I'm also amenable to sticking a pre-release. I could probably stick a pre-release tag on something.
I think the script only works on release tags.
Is it really going to be that big of an issue for us to have potentially some minor releases after 4.9.0? Like, so that way we can kind of like take a couple steps and iterate on all of this automated.
That would be a
build
pre-release
packaging.
tag. Right? We could just make like
It
a
would have to
5.0 pre-1.
Well,
Let's
no,
just
I mean like do like a 4.9.1 or something like that. Like do whatever we need to do so that way when we come to do the 5.0, we're like everything we know. That was kind of what I meant by kicking the tires. But maybe that's not necessary.
I'm very hesitant to do anything that is fundamentally breaking and have a 4.9.1 tag on it. Right? These are breaking changes. I would much rather have a 5.0 pre-1 or just
break.
or a 5.0 tag and just never declare 5.0 stable. Like I think 4.0. I don't think we ever really liked 4.0. I think we went from 4.0 to a very quickly 4.01. So
it's true. The .1 is usually the one that you want.
Yeah.
That seems fine. Like
we could, if we really needed to, we could do. I like the 5.0 pre, but I don't know. I'm not a software engineer, so
I kind of want to just do a 5.0 pre because then I won't feel bad about deleting it later. Like it just feels like an artifact we're creating for our workflow as opposed to something we really want to publish. So I don't know that we need to make a permanent tag for it versus just like here's a little throwaway thing. This is going to go away, in a week.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of happy to hear other votes.
I support that. What you just said.
I mean, I think we got to get 4.9 done, and
yeah. Let's see how that one goes first.
Blade and Nick, it's on you two.
I am working on it right now. That was actually
PR like the wind.
Pulling this up.
PR's approved, so
This is just on me. Damn it.
I don't know if anyone has any other things they really want to sneak into from the last 4.0.
There, I don't know who Puffy CID is, but mentioned in Slack that he'd like to get something in for the 4.9.0, 7076. Just noticed it, so.
He has a lot of really nice tables, and I like it when they merge in. Mike, I don't know if anyone has anything else they want to talk about 4.9 or 5.0.
Tentatively, when are we tagging it? Later this week or right?
I can't make any commitments about when I can tag that until after 4.9 is done. Because all of our tags are strictly linear, so until 4.9 is released.
No, I'm asking about 4.9.
Yeah, I think by end of week was the hope for 4.9.0.
Okay.
but we're just waiting on me, and then I mean, I guess if we want to try to get any other opportunistic things in to kick tires before we hit 5.0, I think would be good. I don't know, like puppies and stable is what I'm talking about in particular.
Yeah, I might have a small AWS fix.
So, can we shoot for
I
end
might-
of week for 4.9.0 with Sunday night or Monday at the latest that we're going to cut it? Because I think the goal was that we hit 5.0 by that July 1st or early July timeframe that 4.9.0 was originally slotted for. That was kind of what Teddy was alluding to, and I like that personally. So if you've got stuff you want to get up, try to get it up soon, today, tomorrow. Awesome.
Mike, you want to talk about security assurance?
I wanted Teddy to break the tie between us on how we should structure or theme, but he just left. I should have put this first.
I feel like I'm not totally sold on any of the things I'm saying. I mean, I sort of am, but I'm sort of not, right? I feel like we have these nebulous sets of design principles that we code Osquery to, and things like don't make external network connections has always been one, and fundamentally read-only in nature is another. I'm not even sure if there are other ones, right? But like those are like two tenets or tenets. Tenets. Thank you. Tenets of like Osquery's sort of development and security posture. And I feel like we don't really have those written down anywhere well.
So Dan, the CEO, he has a format for some of his documentation for a new project or for a project kickoff where you document goals, but also anti-goals, things you expressly know you're not going to do, stating that makes you stick to your goals. And so that was part of my thinking when stating what things we do definitely address is to also mention things that we know we don't want to address, if for no other reason than as a reference, because I've been asked the question a lot of times, what do you do against the attacker with root? And the answer is, we decided we're not doing anything about that. It's out of scope. And so putting that into a document is valuable, I think. As long as the document's not a long list of empty answers, which I don't think it is. It's definitely a hell of a lot shorter than the one the PhD wrote. I think you took a look at it and you were like, I'm not going to read that. We don't want to reach that length. So if you have to scroll more than 2 pages, I think it's too long. However, the driving need for me is, or for us, is that I know someone's about to commission an audit of Osquery code, and they are going to do a better job if they know what constitutes a finding, and what to focus on.
So I feel like I like the idea of goals and non-goals, and I feel like I'd like us to start, and I don't know, maybe security.md is the wrong place too, like I don't know, right? But I feel like we have these.
I moved it to assurance.md.
I don't know. Assurance doesn't mean anything to me. Assurance just brings up these boogeymen of like 40-page compliance questionnaires with 0 real content.
Okay, well, it's in a different document.
But
SecurityMD for everyone else is normally just like, here's how to report problems.
Right.
So I took it out of that one.
I feel like we should document our goals and non-goals. And to me, those are a little bit philosophical, right? They're sort of fundamentally our principles of development. And then I feel like there's a little bit more of and here's a much longer set of like, how do these goals and non-goals apply to this particular situation and question you have? And the doc that I was reading from you feels like it blurs those together, or at least when I read it, I feel like I blur them together. So I don't know if it makes sense to split those or just put, goals and non-goals at the top and then like assurances that stem from these kind of below that.
So maybe if it started with the threat model,
Even threat model. I wonder if we should add sort of the idea of goals and non-goals to the README, right? Like these are our security goals.
Yeah.
And then, if you'd like to read more about threat models and assurances, here's the doc for that, right? Because I feel like some of the things in assurances feel like our goals, right? Like external network connectivity and read-only, and generally read-only operations feel fundamentally like they belong. It's like a very high level. These are our goals. This is the promise we are aiming to make, even though we know we don't do it everywhere.
Steering away from making promises, but everything's a best effort. Like our goal, is to not have this problem, and here's what we're doing. The problem might still happen, but we've done these things to at least mitigate this risk. I think what I'm hearing is that we probably want to talk about the same thing, but maybe you're using plain language, and I'm introducing terms like threat model, which might bring a lot of baggage. I'm not trying to bring baggage to it. It helps if the jargon allows people to find what they're looking for, or to compare it to their expectation for what other teams have documented on their project. Teddy proposed the idea of calling it a security assurance document, and so I wanted to get his opinion on how to scope that. I'm not pushing for one way or another on the scope, but I would like closure. So I get intermittent spurts of time to work on this, and I'm in one of those time frames, but I might run out of time and have to go somewhere, and then it'll be another month before I can put anything onto the document. I don't want that to happen again, because I know I opened this thing in April.
What do you think so to be honest, I like a lot of the things you just said aloud, right? Of like, well, let's talk about our goals. And I don't know, when you say it this way, it sounds better than when I read it. And then maybe that's just because you have more of my attention. I don't know for sure. But I guess maybe I feel like we should sort of think about section of this as like, I guess you've got design, I'm sort of skimming this doc in the background now. I think one of the things that I'm seeing in this, so I end up reading a bunch of like compliance questionnaires and large security docs, and this has some of that same flavor of like, don't use no custom cryptography, right? And like that's not really a goal of the project. That's almost just like, of course, we say this because of course but we're not idiots.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of like when your product says like, no cancer causing agents. Well, right.
May contain cancer causing agents in the state of California. Prop 65.
Yeah.
So
I'm thinking of like when your orange juice says vegan on it. Like, okay, I would hope so.
Right. So like,
but it's also something
say it. But I want to say that in a different way than I say Osquery tries to be a read-only tool, because that like one of those is a thing that like we're actively trying for and is important and meaningful, and the other one is like sort of just table stakes.
Yeah. Okay. So let's reorganize the content. I'll reorder it so that important things are first, and I'll try to be more thoughtful about the topic headers.
I mean, maybe if I think about this and I skim what you have and I think about what we just said, what I sort of maybe want to think about is like security goals, security non-goals, and then assurances. And assurances are very similar to a lot of what's here that I'm like, what are we doing? Assurances are kind of like the things that someone who is coming from a security context might expect to see or something, right? They're a little bit more like, what are your compliance checkboxes? And maybe have like security goals, non-goals, threat models, and then assurances or something. You probably write more of these than I do, so what do I know? Does that make sense?
I don't write these very often. That's why this is a relatively haphazard. But I've started with a bulleted list, to get ideas down and collect them. And this is the editing process where they get shifted around. So Okay, I'll shift things around a bit, and then maybe get another review from you. Teddy's opinion, still want that if he can somehow, if we can ping him. I mean, he's getting, of course, all of the pings from the GitHub, but
I mean, I think the thing we're maybe concluding, or I'm concluding, is like the assurances end up being all of this sort of languages and assurances and things that you might expect, and a lot of the things seem fine. And then I guess I'm probably just advocating that we add a goals and non-goals section to the beginning of like, to sort of make those very clear of like, these are the things that we hold. These are our truths. And then here's how this all breaks down.
Yeah. I'll move the things that seem more like a list of miscellany to the end.
And another interesting question, right? If I'm just sort of skimming this, the two on my screen right now are like daemon runs as root and no self-update features. Do we want to, for self-update features, this is a thing that most of the Osquery vendors are going to ship themselves. And I don't know if we want to kind of call that out, that like Osquery doesn't do that, but likely this is part of a vendor solution. I don't know how to do that linguistically. Like the language feels awkward.
I guess we have to mention that vendors provide update features.
I'm thinking that like, I'm coming at this from a couple directions. I guess one of them is who's reading this and like, is their takeaway the right thing? And like, if you've got someone who's like, oh, but Clyde, what do you mean you do updates? Oh, Osquery says it doesn't do updates. Or, like, how do you say, like, I don't know, talk to your vendor. People build things. It's not the same anymore.
I don't think you need to be that call out like that specific. I would say you could just leave it to the state of like, Osquery does not provide a self-updating feature, right? Like just say that you don't do it. And then
I'll
like
just
leave
make it clear that it's out of scope for this project.
Yeah.
That's what you did. So
yeah, I think the reason why it's out of scope is because some of us believe that was harmful, I guess, to have an agent with this much responsibility just upgrading itself.
You mean in the beginning?
I don't know. It became a philosophy or something of Osquery that we would not accept an update or patch.
I think it was just that everybody we knew who had Osquery deployments already had like a very strong chef presence or puppet presence, or like they already had some sort of management mechanism. And so it just was never needed. And I think adding it in maybe just felt like bloat or like extra things that we didn't know anyone who that use case would solve. So I think it was a legacy reason that was there just because it was there. I don't know if there was any explicit call out of saying like, we're not going to allow self-updating features kind of a thing.
Okay.
I would still probably advocate against it because I still am not convinced it needs to be in the agent. That's just my 2 cents. But I don't know if there was ever any like big line in the sand drawn when we said we're not going to do this. It was more of just that we didn't know anyone who needed that.
Having now written an Osquery updating mechanism, I don't think it belongs in the agent just because it's really obnoxious to have it in the agent because there's a lot of you can't overwrite the binary with itself while it's running kinds of nonsense. And Osquery is a very self-contained binary. So like it belongs in another agent. And if Osquery ever decides to ship one, that's cool too.
Well, I know Fleet is working on Orbit.
So Fleet has one, which is very similar to Collide's, which shouldn't surprise anyone. Uptix has one, which is totally different. And I think a lot of the other people like Jump Cloud and Cisco and is ThreatStack one, or were they one of the acquisitions? I don't remember. Like all of those probably have their own update mechanisms. So,
well, definitely the dozen or so big companies that are packaging Osquery are packaging it in something else that they update. So
exactly,
yeah.
Okay, so cool. That makes sense. And then sort of daemon runs as root is an interesting one because there is some work to have that not happen.
I think I changed the wording to it runs by default as root.
Okay.
And I also said recommended to run as root. I think that's a valid statement.
I mean,
a daemon anyway. the interactive client, I understand is useful outside of root.
If someone asked me, I would. So when people ask Collide, what we generally say is that to have read access to all of the things, it's much simpler as root access. So that's what we recommend. But we're also a commercial company, and we don't really want to deal with people who are like, I did this weird thing and it broke.
Yeah, well, if you don't run it as root, you're running it under the context of some user, and they're going to see different things and less things.
There's a bunch of C groups work. One of the community people is running it as a non-root user on Linux, at least with enough C groups permission and capabilities that it effectively has root access. So they isolated it a little bit more. It was some neat work. It was from Jalspeth. That name is familiar to anyone.
Yeah, this is probably useful for the deployment guide, but there's probably a fair amount of outside Osquery things that could be done.
I guess that's actually, when you say that too, that's a good point, is that the scope of this doc should be about the agent, not the deployment. Although I wonder if that gets a little bit weird because we ship, the packages we ship are like halfway to a deployment. So like, do we have security assurances about the packaging?
I don't know, man. I would agree with the first thing you said. Sorry, I know that I keep butting in on something I know very little about, so apologies, but I really think that this document should just focus on the binary, like the agent itself. Because like the deployment, like I don't think we've ever made guarantees about deployment. Like we try, we do our best in some cases, but like the place where we did draw the line on things was these like self-evident truths that Osquery shall be read-only. We shall not make external network calls, right? It was like just agent specific. And so I like that. I like that this document is focused on like, here's assurances we place on the agent. The deployment's on you. Like that, you got to find your own way to do this. But like, we will build you this very solid, robust daemon. And that's it. That's just my own 2 cents, I guess.
I like that. That's what I want. As a project, that we actually don't ship the daemon. We ship packages, so we sort of undermine ourselves.
We put up signed binaries. We put up a zip that just has the binaries in it if you want. For Linux and Windows, we do. Yes, we do.
For Linux and Windows, maybe. Not for macOS.
Fine. But it's like it's a PKG. Like you could just zip it. But yeah, I see what you're saying. Sorry.
You can rip it out of the MSI too. I mean, I do.
I think the bigger deployments, the ones that I guess my knowledge is incredibly dated, but like the ones that I'm most familiar with or know the most about is like they don't necessarily care about the deployment stuff we're giving them. They just want that binary, right? Like they just want the daemon itself because they're going to change it.
I would say this is maybe a great entry for the goals and non-goals, right? Is that like we are making assurances about the daemon, not the packaging. Like bugs in the packaging we want to fix too, but like it's a different.
It's a lower scope. Priority. Yeah, or it's like we're interested in them. If you have them, let us know. But if I had to pick, I'd always go for the daemon stuff instead.
I think we're responsible for the installer doing its job without making some sort of vulnerability, but it's like a pretty minor amount.
Well, sure, but like
everything else. So
fundamentally, the installer can't be read-only. So that
okay, so that's big asterisks for the statements. Like doesn't change system state. I guess I can make it.
It's just it's like a different. And there are these things where like we want Osquery to be self-contained, and like the installer's never going to be self-contained, and like absolutely, if our installer is creating security problems, that's a huge issue, and we would cut a release and fix it as soon as we could. But
I worry that we're getting too in the weeds on this, that like we're starting to split hairs too finely about like, is someone going to nitpick us because we say that Osquery doesn't modify system state, but the installer does? Like, I'd be like, come on, man. Like,
it's not really holding up this.
If I say Osquery, I'm talking about the daemon, right? Like, I'm not talking about what Wix does on your system or how a PKG functions, right? Like, I think that's a little too pedantic.
I'm already, I think, aware of like an exception or two to everything we've done. Like I think to make audit work, we have to twiddle something. I don't remember specifics, but yeah.
You're right, though. We do.
So yeah, for the most part, not messing with system state makes it compatible and friendly for. I think all we were trying to do there is not cause problems. I don't know, but anyway, not to make any of our own security tools flag us is probably one of the goals.
We should start shipping the eCar string.
Or not, yeah.
All subsequent
I guess-
Osquery releases will
Yeah.
contain some aesthetically pleasing strings.
We'll put it in a query pack. Okay, that's all. I don't want to waste any more time with my PR. Thank you, though.
Does anyone have anything else? If not, thank you all for the work you're doing, and the PRs and everything.
Thank you too.
Probably the end of this week's.
Okay, look for it on YouTube today.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye all.